Hello and welcome in this new video tutorial brought to you by Hdesigntutorials.com. Today I'll show you how you can easily use Adobe Photoshop CC to apply the following manipulations. First, I will drag and drop the photo of my subject inside Photoshop. Then I will double-click the layer of my photo to unlock it and give it a name. Before we start working, let's first save this document as a PSD file. Easily select a folder for your document and give it a descriptive name, then click on OK to save it. Now, the first thing I will need to do is removing the background behind the subject. To do this, I will simply select the layer of the photo to highlight it, then select the Quick Selection tool. Before making a selection, you have a couple of options to adjust the size or the hardness of the Quick Selection tool depending on your needs. I will simply click and drag to create a selection around the subject. Then zoom in a little bit and hold the Alt key to adjust my selection and prevent cutting any undesired areas from the subject. After making a good selection around the subject, you can also click the Select and Mask button on the top to refine the selection a little bit more. In the View mode, I will select the Unlayers mode. And I will increase the radius and the smoothness parameters to make the edges of my selection look smoother when I cut. Now I will simply hit the Delete key on my keyboard to remove the background. Don't forget to hit Ctrl+D to deselect. Now let's go ahead and create a new background behind the subject. In the Layers panel at the bottom, click the small icon to create a new layer. Then click, hold, and drag the new layer to place it under the subject layer. Now select the rectangular marquee tool to drag a selection around the entire document. Then go to Edit menu and select Fill option from the list to fill the selection with any color. Right-click the background layer and choose Blending options from the list. In Styles, I will select Gradient Overlay and create a gradient composed of a dark gray and a light gray. As shown, I will use the parameters to create a similar background to the one I've removed. Now, as I have the subject separated from the background, it will be easier for me to cut the layer into different parts than easily applying different effects on any portion of the subject. So I will use the pen tool to create a custom shape, then convert the shape into selection to cut the neck and chest portion and put them together in a new layer. Before I start creating a shape, I will make sure the fill and the stroke are set to no color. After done creating the shape, make sure the shape layer is selected, then switch to Paths panel and hold Ctrl key, then click the thumbnail of the shape layer to convert it into selection. Now go back to Layers panel to select the layer of the subject, then go to Edit menu and choose Cut from the list. Now let's create a new layer. Then go to Edit menu, Paste Special and select Paste in Place. Also, I would like to copy a portion from the cheek of the subject, so to do this, I will repeat the same process and use the pen tool again. I will delete the shape layers because I don't need them anymore. Then I will select the cheek layer and hold Ctrl key, then click the neck layer to select both layers, then right-click one of them and choose Merge Layers from the list to group the two layers together. Now I will go to Image menu Adjustments, then choose Shadow and Highlights from the menu. In Shadows and Highlights window, I will use the parameters to darken the skin and make the already bright areas on the skin looks more shiny and glowy. The reason why I want to do this is to simulate the realistic light reflections of a plastic or a metallic material on the skin of the subject. Now go to Filter menu and select Camera Roll Filter from the list. Switch to the Detail tab and use the Noise Reduction filter parameters to blur and remove the details from the skin. Now let's use the Dodge tool to add more intensity to the light reflections and make things look more shiny and more reflective like a realistic metallic surface. Now let's cut the cheek portion again to put it in a separate layer. Also, I will cut the upper part of the neck and put it in a separate layer. Now I would like to make a cut in the middle of the neck, so let's first give this layer a name, then use the pen tool again to cut the upper part of the layer. I will right-click the cheek layer and go to blending options to apply an inner shadow effect on the cheek portion to make it look profound under the skin. Now, to make things look more realistic, we will create an inside part for the neck. Now I will rename this layer and I will drag it and put it behind the neck and chest layer. Now I want to create a custom shadow for the upper neck part, but in this time I won't use the drop shadow available in blending options because I want to apply the shadow just in the bottom side of the layer. So let me show you how I will create a custom shadow. So first I will right click the upper neck layer and duplicate it. Then I will give this layer a dark black color by going to blending options, color overlay. Now I will use the bottom row key on the keyboard to move the layer down a little bit. Then go to Filter menu Blur and select Gaussian Blur to blur the layer a little bit and make it look like a shadow. Also, I will create a custom shadow for the neck and chest layer, so I will repeat the same process to manually create a shadow. Now let's import the cables photo inside Photoshop. As you can see, this is a simple transparent photo with a bunch of cables which I will be using to fill the inside of the neck. So first let's drag this photo and put it in between of the neck and chest layer and the inner neck layer. I will resize the cables and make it smaller. Then I will simply duplicate the photo and place it properly in another position inside the neck. Also, to create some sort of variation, I will hit Ctrl+T, then right-click the image to transform it and flip it horizontally. Then rotate it. I will duplicate the photo of the cables 2 more times, then try to place the cables in different positions inside the neck to create more variations. Now I will select all the layers of the cables, then right-click and choose Rasterize Layers from the menu. Then I will right-click the layers again and select Merge Layers from the list, or simply tap Ctrl+E on the keyboard to group the layers. Now I will select the cables layer and go to Image Menu Adjustments and select Hue and Saturation to desaturate the image. I'll go back to Image Menu again, Adjustments, and select Brightness and Contrast. Then I will decrease the brightness and raise the contrast to make the cables darker. Now it's time to cut the hair portion from the head, so I will fastly use the pen tool to do so. Now I will go ahead and import 2 more photos inside of Photoshop to complete this manipulation tutorial. I will drag the layers of these 2 photos and put them behind the subject. I will resize and place the photo of the brain properly behind the head of the subject. Then I will change the mode of the photo to lighter color. Now I will take the photo of the matrix code, rotate it, and change its mode to color dodge. Then I will desaturate it. Then find a proper placement for the photo behind the subject. Then I will duplicate the layer. You can tap Ctrl+J on the keyboard to fastly duplicate layers in Photoshop. Then I will place this on the top left corner. Now I will select the matrix code layer in the top, and I will click this button here to add a mask layer to fade out the image using a black and white gradient. Or you can easily reduce the hardness and the opacity of the eraser tool to fade out the edges of any photo. Also, I will easily use the eraser tool to clean up and remove any undesired portions in my design. I can also use the burn tool to tweak the photo of the brain and give it some dimension. Finally, I will add an adjustment layer to apply a color grade. I will select the Foggy Night 3D lot available in Photoshop to entirely change the look and feel of my photo. I will add a little bit more intensity to the matrix codes. Also, you can reduce the opacity of the adjustment layer a little bit to decrease its effect. Well, this is how I've created this manipulation in Photoshop. I hope you enjoyed this video tutorial, and please don't forget to subscribe.